Working with hardwood can be scary, but today I'm going to try to ease those fears. I'm going to be showing you how to make this end table out of hardwood. This is a great first step when making hardwood furniture. This thing looks like it's really complicated and tricky to make, but believe it or not, it's a lot easier than you would think. This whole video is step-by-step how to do this project, so stick around, learn how to make it for yourself. Let's get into it. Starting off with the tabletop, we're gonna need 4 pieces that are 3 3/8 inches wide, 1 inch thick, and 16.5 inches long. And then you're gonna need one other piece, and this is also for the tabletop. This one is 2.5 inches wide, again, 1 inch thick, and again, 16.5 inches long. When you put them all together, it's gonna look like this, and your shorter piece there is gonna be in the middle, and then those other 2 pieces will be on the outside, sandwiching that one in. Moving on, you're gonna need 2 smaller support pieces. These ones are also 1 inch thick. Everything in this project is 1 inch thick. These ones are 1 1/4 inch wide, and then these ones are 13.5 inches long. For the other support pieces, we're gonna need 2 more. These ones, again, 1 inch thick, 1 1/4 inch wide, and these ones are 16 inches long. And then finally, we've got the legs. So the legs, we've got 4 of these pieces, which are 20 inches long, again, 1 inch thick, 1 1/4 inch wide, and that's all you need for this project. So we're gonna start by gluing our tabletop together, and the way we're doing that, like I said, put that little one in the middle, and then we're just gonna bring everything up, and we're gonna put some glue on it and clamp it together just like you're making a cutting board. So some tips when you're clamping here, I'm using cauls, which cauls are is basically just a scrap piece of wood with one flat edge that you put a piece of packing tape over, and you clamp those 2 together on either side of the board, and that flattens out the top so you won't have to do a ton of sanding or run it through the planer. And make sure you wipe your glue. There's gonna be more sanding to do later, but the more glue you get off now, the better. Let that glue up, we're gonna move on to our table base. First thing with our table base is we're gonna take our 2 support pieces that are 16.5 inches long. We're gonna get these cut down to 13 inches, and we're gonna put a 10-degree angle on each of the sides, and we're gonna do them like 10 degrees there, 10 degrees there, so the piece ends up being a trapezoid afterwards. We're gonna cut one side first at 10 degrees. Now from that angle, we're gonna measure from the point there down 13 inches and make a mark. And then cut the other side at 10 degrees as well. Now match up your other one there and cut that one the same way. So from tip to tip there, it is 13 inches long, and you're gonna wanna save those 2 scrap pieces that have that 10-degree angle on it, because that's gonna help us glue up a little bit later. So we're gonna put these aside and move on to the legs. So we've got our 4 pieces that are 20 inches long, and we're gonna do the same exact thing on these, but this time, we're gonna cut at 10 degrees here, and then 10 degrees down here, so these angled cuts will be parallel. So we've got one cutout, and basically we didn't measure this cut at all. We just took as little as we could from each end as possible, and we got that 10-degree angle. So this one sits flat, and then this one is flat up here. So now that we've got one cutout, we can just go ahead and on the other 3, cut one of the sides as close to the edge as you can, preserving as much material as possible. Just cut one of them at an angle, and then you can match them up to this one to make sure that you have that exact cut every time. So my cut right now from the sharp end here to the obtuse angle here is perfectly 19 3/4 inches. Now yours might not be that exact size. That's okay, as long as all 4 of these end up being the same exact size, width, length, everything. Is fine. You can see all these have the same angle and they're all the same size. So now we're gonna put those away for now and go back to our 13-inch pieces that are cut at a trapezoid. What we're gonna do with these is we're gonna put some half laps into them. That way these 2 can sit into each other and they'll both be flush to the ground. So to make the half laps, we need to find the center of each of these pieces, one of them on the bottom side and one of them on the top side. See how the angles are different here? We need to do one on the bottom and then one on the top. So how I did that is I just found the center of each of these pieces, and then I measured 5/8 inches away from it on one side, made a mark, 5/8 inches away from it on the other side and made a mark. The reason I did 5/8 inches on one side and 5/8 inches on the other side is because that equals 1 1/4 inch, and that's the thickness of these. So with these lines lined up, you'll be able to put the piece right in between on both of these. And I'm just go ahead and I'm not gonna go all the way up to the line first. I'm gonna go a little bit to the right of it on this one and to the left of it on this one. and then we can kind of make our way out as we need more material taken off. So you see, I cut the half lap there, and I left a little bit on each side, and they fit together perfectly there. A little bit of slide, so that's perfect. So that was on the top side, so now we have to cut on the bottom side of this one, so that can slide right in there, and they fit together. Look at that. Beautiful. I love it. Okay, so now we're gonna start putting the legs together. So put one of these aside for now, and we're gonna clamp it to this bench. But you see we put down some packing tape here because we're gonna be clamping this down and we're gonna be gluing on here, and we don't want this to glue to the bench. Now we're gonna take two of our legs and we're gonna match that 10-degree angle right to that 10-degree angle there. And they are both flush with the table, and that angle is also both flush there. And now you're gonna take your little cutoff I told you to keep. Because what we're gonna do is we're gonna put some glue on this end grain here, rub that in, put some glue here as well. Then we're gonna line that up, put the angled piece against your leg, push it in, and then we're gonna clamp that down to the table. That's gonna be our clamping device to keep these together while the glue is drying. And you wanna make sure that this is perfectly lined up here so you can't feel any raised section when you go over this joint. And just make sure that you're spraying and wiping your glue. And now do the same exact thing with this leg. While that's clamping up, let's go ahead and unclamp our tabletop. Wow, that is heavy. That is so much heavier than I thought it was gonna be.
It's a lot of clamps.
Wow, that's a lot of... Oh, there goes one of them. All right, not bad at all. Gonna go ahead and get some of this glue off, then we'll get that circle cut. Okay, so you're gonna find the side that you want as your bottom. We're gonna use this one as the bottom because we got a little live edge right there. That will probably get cut off, but we're gonna use this as our bottom. So now what we're gonna do is measure 8 inches in from 2 of the 4 sides and make a mark. 8 inches in, make a mark. So those marks will meet right about there. Now what we're gonna do is drill a little hole in there. You're not gonna wanna go too deep. I'd say about 1/4 of an inch. You're just gonna drill a hole. This drill bit just needs to be smaller than the nail we're gonna use. We're gonna be using this nail to go into this just a little bit. It's not gonna go all the way through, and this is your bottom, so you'll never see this. But we're gonna be using this nail to go through this, and that's how we're gonna get the circle. I'll show you that when we get to it, but for now, we're just gonna go a little bit into that mark we made, probably about 1/4 of an inch. Now come over to your miter sled on your table saw. You don't need to use a miter sled if you don't want to drill through this, but we've made a mark here at 8 inches away, and then at least 8 inches away from each side of the fence. So 9.5 is where we ended up making our mark. So this is 8 inches away from the blade, and it is also at least 8 inches away from both of these fences. Now we're gonna pick this up so we don't drill into our table saw, and we're gonna go all the way through that mark right there. Flip your miter sled and find that hole that you just drilled, and then hammer your nail right through it. Flip it over again. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna lower my table saw blade all the way, and I'm gonna line that hole up on the underside that I just made over to the nail. Okay, so we've got the nail poking into that hole a little bit. It's not all the way down yet because we're running into a problem. Because we have these 2 bars on the side of our miter sled, now we can't go ahead and turn it. So that's an easy fix. So to fix that, I took a scrap piece of wood that I just had lying around, just a tiny little scrap, and I drilled a hole, and then I measured 8.5 inches away from that hole. What I'm gonna do is put the nail through the little hole, and then hammer that into that hole you've already made on your workpiece. Then I'm just gonna go ahead and rest my pencil around this and make a circle. But what this is doing is this is giving us a reference line to cut with our jigsaw. So now this whole thing can fit inside of this now. We got that cut out. If you want to, you can use that same technique we just did, and then you can just cut the circle out with a jigsaw. It might not be perfect though. You're really gonna have to take your time. So that's why we're doing it on a table saw, to make sure it's perfect. But I suggest doing it this way, but you can do whatever way you want if you want to use a jigsaw. Just gonna go through, then we're gonna turn it a little bit, go through again, and we're gonna do that a bunch of times until we can spin the whole piece around the blade. We've got our top cut out and sanded. This thing is looking nice. If you would like to stop and use that as a cutting board, do that. Now we're going to get a small round over bit on both of the legs and this top here, and just a little sneak preview of the legs. Put those half lap in. Look at that, that's nice. So these legs are not done yet. We still need the top pieces with the half lap, but we're not gonna round those over. We're gonna do this with round over first. We're really only gonna do like 1/8 inch. It's gonna be a very small round over, but just break these edges and make it look a little bit nicer. We're also going to do that on this top piece as well. Now it is time for the dowels in the legs. So we're using 3/8 inch dowels, which means 3/8 inch bit. What I did is I measured 1/2 inch up and then 5/8 inch across. That'll give us a perfectly centered spot to drill through. And we're gonna add a dab of glue. Shout out to Daniel from Beard and Viking Woodworks. There it is. We'll sand it more later. Go ahead and do that 3 more times on all 3 of the other legs. So remember those support pieces we have for the top? We're gonna cut those down, again, with a 10-degree angle on both sides, so it makes a trapezoid. And from tip to tip, it is 6 3/8 inches long. Once you've got that cut out, you can go over to your leg, and it'll fit in perfectly, just like that. And then you can do half laps on these the same exact way you did the half laps on the bottom. So go ahead, make that middle measurement, 5/8 inch from each side, make your mark. Go ahead, cut the half lap on the miter saw or table saw, whatever you got. We're gonna go ahead and do that. You do the same. We're gonna take the legs and we're gonna glue them together right there, and then we're gonna put a dowel through the center of those. Now that we got the legs put together, we're gonna put one of those support pieces in. So I just took a flat edge piece of scrap, doesn't have to be sturdy or anything. What I'm gonna do is clamp these 2 pieces together. Then I can slide this into there, and that will allow me to put some glue on there. So once you got that on there, we can go ahead and do the same trick as last time with these angled pieces right there. And then we can clamp from one side to the other underneath here, which will give pressure. Gonna let this glue up for a little bit, then we'll get that other half lap in. So we let that dry for 30 minutes, and then we took off that big piece and we put these smaller ones so we can have this half lap open in the middle. Now we're gonna go ahead and put the other one on and center that up, and then clamp that one the same way. Let that all dry up, and then we'll come back to it, put the dowels in, get it all finished up. It is all sanded, and the legs are looking good. Once you've got it centered up, we're gonna go ahead and we're gonna pre-drill. Make sure when you're pre-drilling, you're not going through the actual top of the workbench. Nice. All right, guys, so we're just giving this some polyurethane as the finish. We are currently live streaming this as well. So if you watch the live stream and now you're watching the video, you get to see it double. I hope that video made working with hardwood seem a little less scary. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. We tried. But let us know in the comments what you guys think. Let us know if you're gonna build it. If you are gonna build it, send us a photo of what you build at fishoverchickswoodworking@gmail.com. That's the email. But that's gonna do it, guys. Thank you so much for the video, watching the video. You're welcome for the video. Thank you for watching. If you liked it, like, comment, subscribe. Comment down below any other videos you'd like us to make. And we go live sometimes now, so make sure to look out for our live streams. Okay, goodbye.